Hello everyone, this is Jasmine, aka Gladiatorinsweats, and I want to welcome the new and returning subscribers. Thank y'all, and I hope y'all are doing well. We're jumping into the Red Skywalker Wavespell today, which is ushering in this energy of wakefulness. And when I think of wakefulness, I see this as us really transitioning to different realms of awareness and consciousness, of being able to explore these different realms, being able to tap into these different areas of territory that we maybe did not have access to before, or sometimes rather it's that we weren't necessarily, I don't want to frame it necessarily as brave enough, but really being in our hearts enough to step into this sort of energy, or step into these new experiences and step into a new frequency. But in just reading the oracle readout for this wave spell, or really for this signature, it's actually supported by the World Bridger, which I really wanted to note specifically because, well, in speaking of the World Bridger, it's representative of, death, of equalization. When I think about it, it's very relative to Pluto, of the great equalizer, as, Scorpio or Pluto of death, the way that we look at that. And so in seeing how death supports this wave spell, and not just that, but I want to tie this into how this applies with the castle. Four wave spells make up a castle. And so in this starting of this new castle, which, ushers in this new wave spell of the Skywalker, I am seeing this as this being this grand, like, plutonic initiation. We're really coming through and really being ushered through, not necessarily just the underworld in a sense, but we're really, as I've been saying a lot lately, in transition. In a lot of these ways, how we're having the old parts die, it's not like a immediate shift into like newness. There's a transitionary phase in which, as you're essentially molting, you're still growing, you're still building yourself up and processing what it is that is coming to be. So I like to see it, or not just me, but it's really representative even when you think of this idea of, regeneration, of these old parts, or not just the old parts, but of the fire that is created from these old parts dying off, being able to use that as fuel, being able to use that essentially as a fertilizer to grow something new. And not necessarily new in the sense of it's new to you, but it's new in the concept that it's uncomfortable. It's not something that we're very used to. It's new maybe in the sense of not in this lifetime, but the way I really want to even just choose a different word than new, because it's not even necessarily that it's new. It's more authentic. It's more genuine. It's true. And that's really what I think of when I think of Pluto, when I think of Scorpio. It's all about the truth. It's not really about, it's not in the realm of duality, of something having to be right or wrong or lesser or greater than. So I feel with this Skywalker, wave spell being very much supported by this process of death, I feel we're really able to allow ourselves to go through this process, not really with many expectations, not really with any sort of understanding or idea of controlling the process, because plutonic, transits or initiations have nothing to do with you being in any sort of control. It's actually, the whole purpose is to get you to release control, or really allow you to release illusionary control, is the way I really like to look at it. Because the way I guess I would like to frame it is, I'm just thinking that the idea just came to my mind of like those, I think they used to have student driver cars where like they would have two steering wheels, or like they would have two pedals. They would have like the student driver's set, and then they would have like a teacher set to like help them in case they were not able to engage the brake or whatever, right? And I'm just having the image of like us, attempting to drive the car while the more expanded part of ourself, the more knowing part of ourself is, busy attempting to try and keep us from wrecking the car or keep us from, completely going off track, while we're busy just trying to like do so much. We're busy trying to control the wheel, when I feel the more expanded part of ourselves is, it's not necessarily that it's doing all of the work, but that it's sending a lot more messages and sending a lot more communication than we're really tuning into, than we're really aware of, because of the minutia of the mind, because of all of these thoughts, because of, our fears, our doubts, our judgments, our preconceptions about things, just everything. This idea that knowledge is so helpful. This is where, again, there's this nuance that we're having to understand, of recognizing that there's a little bit of quote unquote dark in the light, and, light in the dark, under the whole premise of, the darkness being something supposedly negative. But I feel like if you're on my channel, you kind of already understand what I mean when I use these terms in this way. But yeah, just going back into the Oracle readout and how it was supported by the World Bridger. It's being challenged and strengthened by the Knight, which is representative of, our intuition, of being able to connect, not just intuition, but when I think of like an abundance of creative potential too. So I see this as not just the Knight, but anytime I really do see these sort of watery energies as a challenge, as I always reference these sorts of energies as storms, as tempests, in the sense of, really having to allow ourselves to be, washed away a little by the water, allow ourselves to kind of be drowned a little bit, in the sense of these feelings, or whatever sorts of things that have been coming up, or intuitions, or like whatever has been coming through in these sorts of like emotional messages. I feel like these have been messages busy trying to come through for a while, or not necessarily for a while, but that they're urgent, that they're important, that they're really trying to show you the ways in which you are self-limiting, or really not allowing yourself to step into more infinite possibilities, not just for yourself or in your life, but as far as what it is that you conceive yourself to be. And receives hidden power from the star, and this is representative of elegance, of art. And the star, whenever we look at it in, the tarot deck, or even within, astrology, it's representative of, hope, of this divine inspiration, essentially, about tapping into that divine source of inspiration, of being able to really be fixed within this realm of infinite potentiality. And so receiving this hidden power from this, as we're in this tempest, in this storm, ushering us through these changes, not just these changes, but essentially through these deaths, through these evolutions of, transformation for us, again, not just on an individual level, but on a collective level. I see this as the star being representative of the grand play. When I think of art, I think of what it represents of like an orchestrated piece, a piece that is put together with, different types of mediums, or different types of colors, whatever it is. It's different types of some things that all come together to create a piece of work. And so ultimately, all of this to say that this is very much this destined, not even just destined in the idea of like, I guess the way I really want to frame it, or not even just frame it, but because I feel that the word destiny just has so many different sorts of connotations attached to it. I really just wanted to get it across that it's really about being in alignment with what the expanded sense of self, what the, what we call our higher self, or essence self, just this name that we have for the piece of us that's not, limited in perception. This part of us is able to come through stronger through this process of really kind of eliminating the old ego walls, if you will. So, yeah, just getting into, I guess, a little bit more of the noted shifts and just talking about it a little bit more, because don't really want to make this too long, but I'm really seeing this with, as I said, this new White Castle that began, which you can kind of see it as, like I said, the next 4 wave spells. So next couple of months being governed by this very plutonic phase and initiation. And not just that, but we're also beginning a new season. So the same way we have, our seasons of summer, winter, spring, fall, you can see the 4 seasons within the Mayan astrology. And so ushering in this eagle season of vision, as we're all talking about this higher perception of being able to be aware and perceive more than what meets just the human eye. You can see how, again, the grander synchronicity of everything that's taking place to really and not just encourage, but to really assist and help us to go through this with ease, if we're really becoming aware of the energies, or really even just tapping into ourselves. It's not even necessarily about having to follow any certain sort of astrology or checking into transits, but really just checking into self and really understanding how these things are happening for you in your personal life, seeing how your feelings of stagnancy, your feelings of not just stagnancy, but also, especially when we're talking about the the Skywalker, we're talking about courage. We're talking about, when we're getting into like these shadow sort of aspects, we're talking about, a lot of these fears, or really these fears that are really based on, again, these limited perceptions, these things that we think. The Skywalker is very much heavily, to me, representative of like Sagittarius, or even the Gemini Sagittarius axis in general, of us bringing together all of the grand, minutia and ideas and everything. Gemini is representative of just the Maya. It's representative of all of these different aspects, all of these different truths that, are, this is how, Gemini Mercury gets to being the trickster, because it's like, it's part of the truth, but is it really the truth? Because it's only a piece of it. But I guess that's a whole nother conversation. Ultimately, I'm just really wanting to get to the whole point of us really having to go through this Neptunian, very plutonic phase of us not only ushering ourselves through this transition of releasing a lot of these, dead, outgrown parts of our ego and parts of the self, but also of these times where we can even get a little bit too caught up into our imagination, to where we aren't so much focused on whatever it is that our goal or our intention really was. So again, where we're seeing how this Neptunian influence plays into it, because we could talk a little bit about the shifts or the transits, but again, I like to talk a little bit more about that as it actually comes to happen. But we'll have a square with the Sun and Chiron in Pisces. We'll have Mercury squaring Neptune in Pisces. We're gonna have quite a bit of Neptune and just Piscean sort of energy getting initiated through these shifts. So I feel like that's not only going to, of course, bring forth these challenges and sort of interactions that really force us to have to deal with these sorts of concerns, but also, the fact that we have some trines and some sextiles. There's just a lot that is happening. Is very nuanced and complex, so that we're able, I feel, to do a really good, clean, sweep of what's really taking place within our psyche, within our mind, really being able to clear house, to be very much empty, in the sense of that the emptiness, we have this idea that it's matter that is more weighty than emptiness, that weighty, that matter is much more of value. And I feel that, not just me speaking, but the collective is starting to notice, as, meditation is starting to become a popular thing. Just essentially all of these different spiritual practices and a lot of this, quote unquote, new age stuff is becoming popular because people are recognizing, maybe not much so in like the specific words I'm using, but they're recognizing how the mind has driven us mad. And it's by design. The mind is made to separate. The mind is made to, create judgment, to create these perceptions and all of these different things. So we're really having to learn to either, not even just either, but we're learning to, I feel, do both. We're learning to clear house in the mind. We're learning to work with the mind, learning to tame the mind, but we're also learning to bypass the mind in the ways in which a lot of times, belief, it's not even as much a matter of belief. We feel like we can just use the belief and, really rework the mind. But I feel like another way, and not just another way, but I feel simultaneously we are bypassing the mind so that we're able to pull through from the heart. Being able to pull from a more pure source in order to purify the mind in the first place, if that makes sense. So yeah, I really hope that this has been making sense because I kind of just been letting the words flow. So I guess I'll just read a little bit of the comments that I wrote down for this Wavespell. So I just wrote of the Skywalker energy being representative of, the embodiment of cosmic wisdom, as I've been saying, of us really coming into embodying this light energy, embodying this sort of sage essence, a wiseness of us. And it's coming into, like I had been saying a couple months ago, about how the idea of balance being a sham, we're really coming into a phrase I really liked from the book, The Mayan Oracle, that they used, dynamic equilibrium. I really liked that, of us really recognizing it's more of a dynamic relationship between all of these different energies, whether we're talking about, divine masculine and divine feminine. It's not just about some sort of like scale where it's about a lesser than or even than. It's about this more dynamic relationship of everything having this sort of underlying unification in everything. There's really no true separation. We're really sort of bringing, things together to oneness, to the singularity, however it is that you may resonate with it. Moving through dimensions, divine masculine, feminine alchemy, bridge between realities, and our bodies being the vessels through which cosmic consciousness actually, descends. So, yeah, I mean, I think I pretty much talked about most of everything. Oh, a few more of the shadow things, because, I think it's easy, or that's always subjective. I think it's relatively simple, I guess, to talk about, the goals, the purpose of these wave spells. But it's always important to me to really talk about, the shadow things, the things that have been coming up. And again, these things aren't even really much like delegated just to like when this wave spell began. But I feel like these are the core sort of concerns that begin to really surface during these moments and during these wave spells. So as we were talking about being supported by death, I feel like we can really even just start there and recognizing, what are some of our fears of death? And it doesn't have to be necessarily just in a very physical sort of way, but, what is it that makes us feel, these fears of change? And the ways in which these things do manifest. So, like, we can look at the ways in which maybe we can be overly focused on our health and wanting to maintain our health. Where can that come from? We can maybe analyze our fears of death, of our mortality. We can look at it again as, our wanting to avoid pain, wanting to avoid certain kinds of suffering. Like all of these sorts of ways in which we really try to cling to not just what currently is or a certain sort of like stagnancy, but also, there's for me, when we even talk about the masculine, I look at it not necessarily just like a positive and the negative way, but in this sort of light and dark way in which we really get so focused on these quote unquote being happy and quote unquote, just being like our emotions being so much tied to our external circumstances and our external experiences, to where everything, however we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our life, everything has to be so much determined by our circumstances, our position in life, by all of these things outside of ourselves. And so I feel like all of these things, whether we can see it in our own lives of not feeling those old validations anymore, or, seeking these validations and not receiving them, or however these sorts of things can even manifest in this way, we can see, the truth again. Like, this is really where we even start to accept pain in order to see what it is that pain is ultimately trying to show us. What is it trying to teach us at this moment? And not just that, but, the tried and true, phrase of what you resist persists. And so we can see here where what it is that we often try to resist or stay away from, and not just even in a physical way, but even with, our thoughts and our words, how the things that we are very much not so happy about, or things that we don't like, how sometimes we can spend a lot of time talking about that or focusing on that, or really just bringing a lot of our awareness and focusing our attention to those things, as opposed to not just necessarily the things that make us happy, but to just more of the things that are really just coming from just being so involved in the experience, but also tapping into the part of ourselves that is really just going to be in the experience, but not of it. Just really allowing ourselves to observe and not really perceive or make, solid judgment about what it is that, what we're perceiving. What does it mean? You know what I mean? Because again, it's through that judgment that we create some sort of suffering. It's through what does that mean to me? The sky is blue. What does that mean to me? That's really where we're coming into, where we're able to, again, like I said, from, very beginning, really questioning what it is that we're perceiving. What is it that we're not just experiencing, but questioning the ego if we're going to go that route. If we're going to go the route of, facing our ego head on and facing these demons head on, which, like I said, I feel like it's a combination of both. It's, accessing that direct spirit and source, while also clearing the mind too, by questioning it, by really digging deep into where do these fears come from, and are they really true? Are they really there? So yeah, I apologize if I've been smacking on the videos. I've been listening to them lately, and I just realized that it might be a little bit loud, so I apologize. Yeah, so I guess that's really how I kind of want to end this. Just really focusing on holding our clear intention for allowing what is of our highest good, what is seeking to happen from the highest vibrations of unconditional love to happen for us. Surrendering without a level of judgment. And again, when we talk about surrender, it's not about giving up, but it's about really referring to an aspect of ourself, a part of ourself that knows more than we do, that knows more than this part of ourself does. So it's just like, I just thought of that whole thing that they have with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, when you have a call a friend. Like, that's really how I feel. It's not necessarily just about calling a friend, but it's really about calling into yourself, of making that call to your own higher self, expanded sense of self, source, whatever name it is that, names are just, names. It's just how we provide some sort of categorization so that we can better express what it is that we need to express, or relate what it is we're needing to relate to someone. So yeah, I really do feel though that this process is not necessarily going to be like done, but I feel like this process will be really reaching a sort of conclusion, or at least like a sort of like wrapping up of this phase when Chiron shifts into Aries and then Uranus shifts back into, I believe, Taurus. So just a lot is taking place, I feel, within just this castle, which, like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a video coming up after this one. But this whole period is really just a huge ushering in and ushering out, all about perspective, how it is that you want to perceive it. So yeah, I know that I can be a little bit wordy. So I do thank y'all, and I really do hope that this made some sense or brought a little bit of clarity about what's been taking place, or, what will be taking place. So yeah, thank you so much again. Do tune in to more of my updates and content on my social media on Instagram, where I will post more of the regular content, the stuff that doesn't come out like every like 2 weeks or stuff. More of the daily, more personal stuff goes there. So you can reach me there at Gladiatorinsweats. A link to that is below, as well as a link to my website if you'd like to book a personal session with me. I am raising my prices and revamping my site beginning of 2019. So if you are looking to get a reading with me, I guess I would suggest to do it now, because now I guess would be your best pricing. Otherwise, yeah, I hope you guys are, always doing well. I hope that even if you're not in your best moment in this now, that, you're able to come back into your space of being, really being able to come back to center, however it is that you're finding your ways and your tools to do that, so that you're really able to. It's always about maintaining, or really, we're choosing a new perspective, when we're talking about new paradigms, when we're talking about all of this stuff. It's when we're talking about, Sagittarius, we're talking about Jupiter in Sagittarius. All of this being about higher perspective, a different perspective, combinations of perspectives. It's really about the synergy of difference here. So, yeah, until the next video, y'all, stay blessed and much love. Peace.